More than that, the Galactic Peace Accord, a treaty, was an agreement made between species that were once at odds for millennia. It was hard-earned, a reward born from centuries of conflict. There were skirmishes, of course. 50 years of tension followed. Naturally, edge worlds were tested, limits pushed, but never once had a signatory dared to publicly break it until New Harmony was bombed by the Empire. There was no military presence in the colony, no warning, no shield grid. Elders and children played in hydro arms. Classes were taught under silent steel and glass domes. It was a gesture of trust from humanity built in a neutral zone, a symbol of peace. That symbol was blazing in space. When the fearsome ships of the Empire came, they dropped charges loaded with antimatter without even issuing a formal declaration. 16,000 civilians gone. The Empire released a statement minutes later. Within hours, the incident was described as an unfortunate sensor-related malfunction, blamed on navigational errors and irregularities. A junior admiral accepted full accountability. He was discreetly reassigned. Reparations were offered without admitting guilt, just a bureaucratic shrug. Humanity responded to the Galactic Council immediately, but not with fleets. Elias Voss, an ambassador, was dispatched from Sol Central. He was well known, an advocate of diplomacy, strength, and restraint. He wore no medals. He brought no guards, only a briefcase. He entered the council chamber nestled inside a Dyson shell orbiting the star Orus Prime. The chamber had not been this quiet since the ratification of the accord. Even the Empire's delegation watched silently, expecting indignation, fury, demands. But Voss spoke calmly. "We trusted this council," he began. "We put our swords down believing you would protect the innocent when we could not." The Sithis, a race known for procedural neutrality, attempted to interrupt. Voss raised a hand. "New Harmony was a sanctuary," he said. "No weapons, no defenses, and you know that." He paused. The Empire calls it a mistake. They didn't stop to speak. They stopped because he strained against the words. "You call it a misfire. But we found survivors, escape pods with children suffering from lung burns. A mother who held her daughter's body for 17 hours before medical evacuation arrived." Council members shifted uncomfortably, not because of the graphic detail, but because they knew what came next. Voss had been a general before he became a diplomat. He had seen war, fought it. The crimson-scaled ambassador of the Empire, VTK, leaned forward. "We are sorry for the loss," he said, "but errors do occur. This should not escalate." Voss didn't raise his voice. Instead, he placed a single data drive on the table. "This," he said, "includes proof, target locks, issued orders, 2 cycles before the attack. There is no error protocol in your doctrine. We decoded it, matched it. This sequence wasn't random." A low murmur swept through the chamber. The Empire's delegation whispered among themselves. Then Voss spoke again. "I didn't come to threaten. I came to ask. What will this council do about the deliberate killing of civilians under your protection?" No one answered. Some looked down. Others at the Empire's bench, silent. At last, the council chair, an ancient creature with translucent blue skin and radiant eyes, spoke. "We need to investigate," it said. "Due process. We cannot assign guilt based on your intelligence alone." Voss nodded slowly, then stood. "Of course," he said. "Just remember, we gave you peace. We buried our anger. For decades we believed this chamber stood for justice." He paused. "If that burden is too heavy, let history remember who brought it to you." And he left without a threat, without a promise, just silence. There wasn't a crack in the room that day, not a whisper. 3 days later, Elias Voss returned, unchanged in tone, manner, or dress, but something in the room shifted. Everyone sensed it. He was the architect of something. 12 ceasefires had passed since his last words. He spoke again without anger, without sadness, only clarity. "We waited," he said, "for your investigation, your response, your evaluation. No consequences, no deadlines." He placed a small data pad on the table. The Empire's reply, 7 lines. They call it unfortunate. They see no reason for further discussion. He didn't even look at it. "I used to have trust," he said. "Now I have certainty." The Empire's representative sighed. "You exaggerate your significance," he muttered. "Growing pains, you're not special." Voss didn't blink. "We're not unique in our loss," he said, "but we may be in how we respond." He stepped forward, firm, not threatening. "We didn't lash out, we provided data, we asked for accountability, we waited, we spoke in council." The Alari representative stirred. Her race was once in conflict with humanity. "Ambassador Voss, you're not suggesting unilateral retaliation." He answered calmly, "No, I'm proposing resolution. I speak as a diplomat, but I was a soldier. I know escalation. For 50 years we showed restraint. Peace is a virtue, not weakness. You saw it as submission. He opened his briefcase not for show but with purpose. He placed a sealed document on the podium. I hereby withdraw from the non-combatant provision of the Accord, per Section C, Article 17, due to breach of protected civilian areas by a signatory state. Gasps echoed and delegates stood whispered. You forget, Voss said. We added a clause to the treaty. You forgot. We did not. Short, sharp laughter. You say we have no fleet, no allies. You're wrong. We do not seek allies, but we pursue justice even alone. The council chair asked quietly, what is it you wish to accomplish? Voss turned, nothing but fairness, but I don't believe you will offer it. He started to walk away, then paused. I feel bound to share one last truth. He waited, letting silence settle. For decades we kept a secret out of respect. Our colonies are protected. You never knew how. Ships, systems, protocols not activated by conflict but by betrayal. You feared our potential for violence, but you never understood how deliberate it would be. Then he left, no flourish, no glance back, because the seed was already sown. At 300 Standard Time, Protocol Helix was activated. No announcement, no warning, just a cascade. Empire military stations went dark. Relay systems vanished from the network. Supply chains collapsed. Nothing exploded, nothing fired, but everything stopped. Entire fleets were disabled. Cities weren't bombarded, but their capabilities vanished. This wasn't war, it was dismantling. Empire commanders panicked. Orders were issued, but systems failed. Emergency beacons were compromised. Ships shut down before launch. Local governors tried to organize resistance, but they couldn't move the dreadnoughts. The dreadnoughts had already moved. One shot was fired, a single broadcast, a universal message. We asked for justice, you were freed, you weren't targeted. Civil unrest from their line of command followed, not out of fear but out of clarity. Throughout the Empire, billions had thought now that the Council had shielded us, but they realized who had actually imposed peace. Bureaucracy, not partnerships, had been the decision, and that decision was over. There was stillness at the Council. Delegates streamed in real-time data. They had written off humanity as being too dramatic. Now whole regions shifted from imperial rule to unruly neutrality for hours without civilian loss. No smoldering worlds, just casualties of a lack of control, of structure, of authority. Empire officials went dark. The Council made an effort at emergency diplomacy. They demanded a truce, but there was no war, it was something else. Ambassador Voss did not return. His message was abandoned, sealed in transmission. No flair, no bravado, just one sentence: you gave us no other choices. It wasn't a typical cycle. No, the spine was broken. There was no negotiation, no demands, only the systematic elimination of the Empire's ability to harm others. Others expected retaliation. None came. Human vessels exited neutralized systems. They left infrastructure untouched. No territorial claims, no governors installed. They removed what gave rise to the Empire, then left. This wasn't conquest. The Council attempted to reaffirm the adjustment. They released a statement. They claimed humanity didn't practice restraint, but response wasn't necessary. The message had been demonstrated in deeds, not words. Humanity was never unpredictable, only patient. And now the Empire's time had run out. By the end of the second cycle, the command structure no longer existed. No surrender, no last stand, just silence where haughtiness once ruled. Human agents moved freely, identifying those responsible for the new Harmony strike. They were taken alive, medically stabilized, an impartial panel convened, council supervised, charges revealed, violations of interstellar law, public massacre of civilians, obstruction of justice. The evidence, uncensored, broadcast across all major networks. There was no room for denial. No space for written orders to hide instructions, verified chain of command confirmed, truth exposed. No one spoke, no comments, just facts. Each transmission bore the same subtitle: we expose rather than destroy. Trial judges were effective and emotionless. Neutral species were listed, council seats offered, many refused.